Raghu, I read your full paper and I read your policy brief. Okay? Um, you have done two things. You have done this primary data collection from 30 GPs in Mulbagal Taluk of Kola district, and you play that up a great deal. But there is another thing that you have done, which I think is far more important than this 30 GP study that you did, which was to look at the official documents of Karnataka government, the budgets, the planning department reports, and so on. So I'm going to focus exclusively on the second. And then I will move to your 30 GP study and question you as to what of incremental value you got from that 30 GP study. So let me begin with the Karnataka official documents. All that work is essentially contained in chapter 4 of your full report. So, in table 4.1 of the report, you have done a wonderfully useful thing, which is you have counted, you have enumerated the budget heads which convey the valuable information regarding funds actually being transferred out of the consolidated fund of the state into the accounts of the panchayats. Doesn't matter what level, ZP, TP, GP, whatever. Then you have a similar thing for TP and for GP. So you've got that wonderful table. To me, that was the most useful thing in your entire study. And what we learned from that is that the majority of budget heads for this kind of transfer go to ZP and TP, and there are only 3 budget heads for going to GP. That conveys a lot of information, just in itself. Now, please remember, and this is terribly important for all of you who work on decentralization, it's important to use technical terms correctly. Devolution, fiscal devolution, is a technical term. Fiscal devolution happens only when funds are transferred from the accounts of one level of government to the accounts of another level of government. When such a transfer does not occur, that fund flow is not a devolution. It can be given the name delegation, it can be given the name deconcentration, it can be given any other name, it's not delegation. So as far as I'm concerned, table 4.1.
One point here. How would you describe escrow account in this context?
I'm going to get to the escrow in just a moment, and I'm going to dispute what you and Raghu both did in attacking the escrow business. Okay, so I'll get to that in just a moment. In the last bit. Please do this, because you know what is a function of language. You know, language is effective only when you and I totally agree on what a term conveys, right? So let's call devolution when fund transfer has taken place under any one of the budget heads in Karnataka in your table 4.1. And as you know, the earlier paper that I wrote with Darshi Sinha made a very important point that these budget heads are not nationally uniform. What is true for Karnataka is not going to be true for Andhra. So what for me would have been very useful would have been if 4.1 had pointed us to an appendix where those budget heads were actually listed, so that anybody doing a cross-state study knows exactly what budget heads to look at to see what's going on in Karnataka. Now, my complaint about your study is that you went that far but didn't go further. What you should have done, Raghu, at that point, having done all that work, you know, dug up the budget heads and all that, was to construct the total of devolution in that technical sense, which happened in any recent year. You say that audited accounts for 14-15 were not available. Let's take 13-14, doesn't matter, any year, any recent year. And let's call that constructed total of devolution in the technical sense, let us call that A. Okay? You have not constructed A. Then you go to Karnataka official documents, link book or whatever it may be, and you get devolution as they incorrectly define it. And that is sum total B from your link book. B minus A constitutes the amount of fake devolution that is happening in Karnataka state. Fake in the sense that they claim it is devolution, but it is really delegation or deconcentration, flows of funds to the line department outposts at GP or TP or ZP level, hardly matters, some decentralized output. fund transfer has not taken place from the consolidated fund of the state to the accounts of the panchayats. Okay, this B or A as a percentage of B would be terrifically useful. It would carry so much information. And furthermore, you had done a time series starting from 91, 92, it's 25 years, If you had done this A as a percentage of B going back that far, which may not have been possible because, as you say, consciousness about budget heads itself is fairly recent, 87 and so, carried it as far back as you could. I'm not a betting person normally because I take the lesson about gambling from the Mahabharata very seriously. But if I were a betting person, I would bet that A as a percentage of B probably has risen, even as B as a percentage of total state expenditure has fallen. Okay, I'm just throwing that out as a testable hypothesis. You may well find that I'm wrong, but I have a suspicion that that would be true. Now you say, so you stay all together, you stay with B, which includes that fake component. Okay, but even including the fake component, you say that it has fallen from 35% to 16% or something. If you revisit that thing again, you will find that in 91, 92 it was 35%. In 92, 93 it fell to 25. After that, it has fluctuated in the 25 to 15% range.
Last 6 years it has remained more or less 15, 16.
Right. So it is a flat trend after 92, 93, and there is just one drop from 91, 92 to 92, 93. Just for the record. Just for the record. There is one 10 percentage point drop, and after that it is a flat.
Last 8 years it's.
Well, I would say if you estimate a trend line, I think you would find it's flat. Anyway, whatever it is. So I am interested in A as a percentage of B, or A just by itself. Now, why am I focusing on A so much? A is what the amendments to the Constitution were all about, right? So to the extent that you are not getting a total for A, and you're not getting a percentage of the fake devolution, you're not unearthing the fakeness in states' claim that they are devolving funds and encouraging panchayats and so on. And we want to uncover that. Okay? Now, for lack of time, how much time do I have? Do I have another 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Now let me get to your 30 panchayat study. What I want to ask you is, what did you learn incrementally over and above what you could have learned if you had located A, if you had quantified A, if you had constructed A? I'll tell you what I have against these kinds of deep immersion studies. I'm sure you learned a lot. I mean, it helps for all of us if we go out to the field. Point is that they're very time consuming. And they're really quite killing, in the sense you have to go out there to hang around, you have to, And research time and research money, has an opportunity cost. I wish, instead of spending all that time on Mulbagal Taluk, you had gone to Andhra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and done this kind of a construction of A and B for all these states. And then we would be on a platform where we could actually do something of analytical value. That is, we can look at outcomes. At the end of the day, we are interested in empowering panchayats only because we want people in our country to have access to water, not be defecating outside, and we want them to lead decent lives. And we can at least do a 4-state comparative study of where these states are in terms of affording that kind of decent life, plotted against the amount of true devolution that they are doing. If it is unrelated, that itself is a negative finding of great value. So my plea to all researchers in the room is, I'm not knocking field studies. I mean, it does help to plow out there and look at the ground reality. And there are things that you uncovered there which are kind of useful. I'm going to get to the escrow business in just a moment. But so I would rather you stayed with the budget documents, uncovered that which can analytically help us to look at the eventual real outcomes, which is what we are all chasing after. So is what we all want.